Hey guys, Christopher Green, have a very, very important emergency update on the coronavirus. I want to talk about how the mainstream media, and more importantly, WHO, the World Health Organization, and the Centers for Disease Control is downplaying and minimizing this risk. And this is a very grave threat. We've seen this in history before. In 1918, after the war, and the soldiers came back here to the United States, over 50 million people were dead. That's more fatalities than World War I and World War II combined. 500 million people were infected. And if we learn from history's past, we know that even then, to boost morale of U.S. soldiers and soldiers abroad, they minimize the risk and the mortality count and how impactful and dangerous the flu pandemic actually was, because they didn't want to start a panic. Now, let me ask you a question. If WHO, the World Health Organization, did not raise its global emergency threat assessment until just about a day ago. So they allowed a 2-week period of time for thousands, if not millions of more people to be infected, die, and then decided to raise it to an official global health emergency. Now, why would they do that? Again, they're minimizing the risk. In fact, WHO, in my humble opinion, can't be trusted. They can't be trusted at all. They just allowed thousands more people to be infected, potentially millions more people to be infected. And based on the math and the exponential rate of this mutating virus infecting people abroad, we could have 300 plus million people dead. Now, keep in mind, in the 1918 flu pandemic and influenza virus, when that was spreading, we didn't have air travel. And isn't that interesting? Today, not only is the U.S. stock market dropping a big 450 points as airlines halt service to China due to the coronavirus risk. Delta, American Airlines, all halting China flights. Singapore banning entrance. So why is the United States still allowing flights from China in the United States? Isn't that interesting? They're allowing us all to be infected. So I'm going to go over the official symptoms, what you can do from WHO and the CDC today, the official narrative. I also noticed too, which is why you should take this seriously, as I read an article earlier this morning, that big tech is going to be censoring all social media posts that are not what they call authoritative in regards to commentary on the coronavirus. Now, they only do this when they want to cover something up, okay, when they don't want you to know the truth. I mean, think about what social media is. Social media is regular people like me and you making content and giving your opinions. Now they're saying you can't. That just tells you how severe and how urgent this message is. So they want to cover this video up, so please share it, like it, get it across your social media platforms. I don't care if you upload it, just get it out everywhere so people are aware. If you care about your family and friends, you need to take these precautions. So let's take a look at what the symptoms and diagnosis of what this looks like. Now, we already have had several diagnoses here at Arizona State University. A student at a university with tens of thousands of people is infected. Now, supposedly they're in self-quarantine, but the problem is, because there's an incubation period I've seen as long as 7 to 9 days, if I remember correctly, this means that as people are touching each other, spending time with each other, they don't know they're infected, and then it's spreading. So again, the question you need to ask is, can your government be trusted? Why did WHO not announce this as a global emergency threat when they could have 2 weeks ago, but then waited till now? Now we have a panic. Now we have the black swan event. Now we have the stock market crashing. And now we potentially have millions and millions more people infected. Now, what makes it very difficult, this is according to the CDC. So this is an authoritative source. This is the authoritative sources, right? This is what the mainstream media is saying. Common human coronavirus symptoms: runny nose, headache, cough, sore throat, fever, a general feeling of being unwell. Now, this is why this is so deadly, because you don't know if you have the common cold or the flu. By the way, most of my friends are sick right now. Most of the people I know are sick. I just spoke with a loved one. They just took off work. They're sick. So I can only guess, do they have the actual coronavirus? Now, also, too, there's a lot of predictive programming. We talked about this. If you watch the docuseries Pandemic that is funded by Bill Gates, they share with you, right, boldly in your face, that the solution to this pandemic is a universal flu shot and a universal flu vaccine. Now, I want you to think about how ridiculous this is, because usually when you get a flu shot, which I never get any, I'm perfectly healthy, I rarely ever get sick, And but they never have the flu shot. The flu shot they're giving you is never the flu that's currently infecting people because it mutates and it adapts. So I want you to think about this logically, critically for a moment. It's not even possible that they have a universal flu vaccine. That's not possible. Influenza is a virulent, mutating, ever-changing, and evolving disease or infection in influenza. So even that does not make sense. But of course, that's what they're pushing. Universal flu vaccine, funded by Bill Gates, and the same people that run these studies just a couple months ago said 65 million people could be dead in just a matter of months, and we should treat this as an act of war. Pretty serious. Sounds pretty serious, doesn't it? So what makes this difficult is the symptoms and the diagnosis really isn't clear. So there is a lot of misinformation on this. Now, the actual term for the coronavirus, according to the CDC, is 2019 nCoV. They give us a situation summary here, source and spread of the virus. Now, of course, they're telling us because they just expect people to believe anything, right? Authorities and the authoritative sources don't really know where this disease came from. They first said it was bat soup, and then that turned out to be a lie. And then it was snakes, and that turned out to be a lie. And then as we dug up more of this information, it was abundantly clear, as has been reported by Israeli intelligence, U.S. intelligence, the DOD, Department of Defense report on this earlier this week, that this actually appears not to be organic at all. It appears to be a man-made bioterror weapon. And when you think about that for a moment, you realize how deadly and scary this truly is. Now, I also want to talk about the things that you can do today. Proactive advice, right? Using common sense and critical thinking. If we know, and this is what I believe, this has just begun. This has just gotten started today, which means you have seen nothing yet. This is the bottom of the first, at the top of the first inning. It's going to get much worse. Millions and millions of people are potentially threatened, and millions of people could die. According to the authoritative source, 300 million people could be dead. That's the United States of America, dead. Okay? In 1918, 3 to 5% of the global population was killed. So things we can think about, common sense things, are 50 million people are quarantined in China. 11 Chinese cities, larger than New York, every single one of them. Wuhan itself with, I think, 11 million people alone. So if quarantines are being forced by the government, total shutdowns of martial law, some would argue FEMA camps, is this going to come to the United States? Right? Is this coming to your state, your city, your town? So what do you do? How do you be proactive? Well, things that you can do is, number one, prep. I'm going to go over that in a moment, but also think about self-quarantine. Okay, think about you taking action before the government takes action on you, right? That's just common sense. So bug out locations, get out of Dodge. Another option is if you can't get out of Dodge because you work in these kinds of things, which I understand. Also, I'd pull your kids out of school. I'd avoid crowded places. One idea is to self-quarantine in your home. Okay, so that's one idea, is don't go anywhere. If you don't have a place to bug out, to get out of the cities, to go out into the small towns, into rural America, then what you can do is quarantine at home. So we know the source and the spread of the virus. They really have no information on it. So isn't that interesting? They don't know the source or the spread. They don't know what it is. Yet we're not allowed to talk about it, right? They don't know what it is, but we're not allowed to talk about it. So think about that for a minute. The fact that they want to censor this is why it's key to get this out to your churches, your schools, your friends, your family. Share this video. Again, put it on social media networks. Now, they say that this is disproportionately affecting the young and the old. They will disproportionately die. But not so was the case in 1918, where actually many of those infected were of, age ranges like myself here, in their 30s or their 40s or early, where, again, this is a respiratory infection. It gets to the lungs. Once it's there, it's very hard to clear it. Symptoms, fever, cough, shortness of breath. So the other question we have to ask, are hospitals in these places prepared for this kind of spread? Now, we're also seeing the quarantine backfire. In China, people are starting to panic because they're running out of food and they're running out of water and they're running out of medical supplies. So I'd also think about that for you and your family. Some basic things you can do. And again, have medicine on hand if that's what you need. Have antibiotics on hand. Also, I encourage all of you, you can stock up on these. These are sold out actually on eBay and Amazon, but if you can find them, right, you can wear this over your mouth because it's transmissible. by mouth, and it's porous, come in your eyes, sexual contact. Goggles, okay, are great. Bug out bags. Okay, I always talk about getting, bug out bags here. You can see this here. But the big thing is, if you can get out of Dodge, if you can self-quarantine yourself, that's much better than staying in the cities and waiting for something bad to happen. Now, they're already banning travel. This also plays into the immigration narrative. Also, I wanted to mention today, notice how there's a total, absolute blackout, cover-up, and no one talking about the Brexit. The United Kingdom just left the collapsing European Eurozone today, and there's not a peep from the mainstream media. Isn't that interesting? I mean, the whole thing just failed, just like I predicted 10 years ago. They left. They got the heck out of Dodge. No one's talking about it. So the severity of this is huge. It will result, like we're seeing today, in a stock market panic. Okay, this could result in bank runs. You're going to want cash on hand. You're going to want medical supplies. You're going to want a bug out plan. I would be stocking up on food and water now. Don't wait till the crisis hits. In fact, if there are reports that the Pentagon and the DOD and Donald Trump, as he's weighing in on all this, are actually, they're buying food rations right now, preparing for what they think would be distribution if and when quarantines come to the United States of America. And I believe this is a matter of time and when, not an if. I believe this is coming to the United States of America. I mean, we've seen this before. We've seen this before in history's past. So there's some information here from the CDC. I'll post all these links before, how the virus spreads, and then some prevention ideas. Wash your hands often with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. Use really hot, scalding water, but don't burn yourself. You can also use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer that contains at least 60% alcohol. If soap and water are not available, avoid touching your eyes, nose, mouth. Clean things like your cell phone and these things. Stay at home, right? Self-isolate, or just leave. Again, the best thing you can do is leave. If you can go take like a mini vacation, it's Friday today, right? You just get out of town. Bug out. Don't be in the major outbreak centers. Cover your cough when you sneeze, like that. Use a tissue, use your hands, but then you have to wash them. Throw it in the trash. Clean and disinfect frequently. Touch objects and surfaces. So let's look into the authoritative sources again, because they only want you to, listen to them. Even though they failed to raise the threat assessment, they've been lying to you. They've been covering up how severe this is. And now we might have 300 million people slaughtered as a result. Think about that for a minute. They've actually allowed people to die and to be killed because they didn't want to cause panic. But that's the job of WHO and CDC, is to make sure you don't panic and to control you and to control the masses so that, things don't get out of control. It's in their self-interest to lie to you. But let's look at the authoritative sources here, because they only want us to look at the authoritative sources. So let's go to the biggest whitewashed and scrubbed and manipulated source that is authoritative on the planet, Wikipedia, where they change the history all the time. I'm reading this verbatim. This is a direct quote from the 1980 influenza that infected 500 million people and killed 50 million, more than World War I and World War II combined. Quote, "To maintain morale, wartime censors minimized early reports of illness and mortality. In Germany, the United Kingdom, France, and the United States, papers were free to report the epidemic's effects in neutral Spain, such as the grave illness of King Alfonso XIII. These stories created a false impression of Spain as especially hard hit, thereby giving rise to the pandemic's nickname." They're talking about the Spanish flu. But let me read that first part again. "To maintain morale, wartime censors minimized," basically, they lied to you, covered it up, just like they're doing now, according to the authoritative sources. The authoritative sources even admit that this is a giant cover-up, that WHO will never tell you the truth. They've willingly infected millions of people, in my humble opinion. This is a panic. This is a crisis. This is not a drill. Take this very seriously. You need supplies. You should be sharing this with your friends and family, and understand this is the truth. I'd prepare now, financially, physically, economically. Think about where this is headed. Think about as more and more people are infected. Travel bans, right? Closures of borders, forced quarantine by the U.S. government, running out of food, water, supplies, medicine. Maybe you're on some kind of medication for heart rate or blood pressure. You should have antibiotics on hand. You need to be in control, because the last person you can trust is the authoritative source. And the last entity you can trust is your government. the most mistrusted, lying sack of crap that even our founding fathers knew would lie to you and cover things up and basically not give you the truth so you could take care of you, your family, your loved ones, and your children. So please, for the love of God, prepare now. I love you guys. God bless. Jesus Christ is King. Get this video out, and I'll keep you updated as we can. I would be considering a bug out now, and I'd be taking all of the precautions just listed.